Hey, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where in the world you're joining from and what nightclub you're joining us from as you're dancing in today. My name is Brenda Meller. I am joined today by Steve Miller. Hey, Steve, how are you doing today?
Fantastic. Happy Valentine's Day, Brenda.
Happy Valentine's Day to you. You're on the Pacific Coast. You're at noon. Actually, you're at 9 a.m.,
9
9:05
o'clock.
a.m.
Yeah,
Pacific. I'm at
we're on the left
12.
coast. We're on the
Yeah.
left coast. So,
I've always got to do a little bit of that calculation as we get our conversation started. And I want to welcome our audience, whether you're watching live or playback. Could you do us a favor and drop a link below or drop a quick comment below? Just say hello. You can say happy Valentine's Day if you want. You can say happy Tuesday if you want. This is kind of our way of doing the mic tap. Hey, is this thing working? Is the live stream working? And as we start to see your
is there
comments
anybody
popping
there?
in,
Is there anybody there?
is
Sorry.
there anybody out there? Yeah, so we can see
Yeah,
people like Kenneth Lang. And there it is, our first Steve Miller reference.
that's
Fly
right.
like an
Hey,
eagle.
Kenneth. Yeah, I prefer to be called Maurice. Thank you.
I was proud of myself, Steve, because the very first time we chatted, I think we got 30 minutes into the phone call and I said, "Can I ask you a question?"
I know.
And
Yeah.
and then I asked the Steve Miller
Yeah.
question that everybody else asked
Yeah.
you, of course.
Yeah.
But
That was a long time. It took a long
yes,
time for you to, you resisted for quite a while before you
I
finally
did. Because I said
finally
he's probably gets that question asked of him from every single person he meets. So I will wait and ask it at the end.
every
But
day.
at any rate, you're a celebrity in your own right, in your own world, Steve. And I'm delighted to be here. This is the second time that we've chatted, and some of the folks I've worked with have not gotten the honor and the chance to get to know you yet. So why don't we start by tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and then we'll jump into this conversation about publishing and how it helps your consulting business.
Yeah, let's keep this part short. I am a marketing and branding specialist. I'm an author of 8 books, 2 of them bestsellers. My first book was published in 1990.
Mm.
Okay, that's called BI, before the internet. So yeah, I help. Mostly, I work with B2B companies, but I have certainly consulted with and worked with a number of solopreneurs because I'm also a professional speaker. I've given about 1,600 presentations around the world, and I have over 6 million frequent flyer miles. So I am a sick puppy.
That is wonderful. I've learned a lot from you in our conversations. And I think we really just started getting to know each other over the past year. And I work with you and Kay as well. And I do have a couple of his books up on screen in case you're watching in the back. Oh, look at that. Look at that. I love that. I love when they have
Right
let
there,
me
right
grab
there. And look,
what
kids,
is
look at how many pages are flagged.
I know. I see yours I don't earmark mine, but I did
Ooh,
read it
good
cover to
catch.
cover,
Good
you
catch
know.
there. That was a good
Yeah.
catch. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's all good. So let me put this back up in my prop area in the
The only
background
thing,
here.
those are the only orange things on your shelves right now. So
No, I've got more orange. I've got in my orange book collection, of course, we've got,
uncopyable, right?
second copy.
You got Kay's
And
book,
then
right?
let's see, we've got Kay's book. I'm not afraid to get out of camera, Steve. I hope
Yeah,
everybody's okay with that.
Kay is my smoking hot wife.
There you go. Got to get the
At
ring light
one
off
time
of it
was
on
the
there.
she was the world's #1 muffler salesperson. So I call her Muffler Mama, and she has a book out, Uncopyable
Is she
Sales. So
is she watching in the other room right now? Does she know we're
I don't
talking about
think
her?
so. I think she's actually doing another podcast.
Oh, see
right
that?
now. Yeah.
Yeah.
She does a ton of
Yeah.
podcasts. She's high in demand. So
Prolific, I bet, right? There you go.
yeah.
Well, I
Hello,
see we've got Mary joining us as well. And
hello,
for those that are
Mary.
watching, continue to drop your comments in. I can't tell you, Steve, how many people I have had reach out to me after our last conversation, and they're still seeing the video and they're still reaching out saying, I just watched you with Steve Miller on the video, and they're inviting me to connect. And I've invited a handful of them to join us. So we might see some other folks coming in
Well, I
today
certainly
here.
hope so. That would be great. By the way, this is not coffee. So
You know what I heard you should do is when you have like vodka or a martini, whatever, you should like blow on it because then it looks like coffee.
oh,
There you go. All right. enough with the conversation. Let's jump in here because people are waiting to hear to talk about this today. We're going to talk
all right.
today.
Mary says she's getting ready. You're writing your first book this year. So, all
Are
right,
ya?
good for you, Mary. And
Mary!
anybody else who listens to this,
That's great.
something like that, write a book.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to talk today about how publishing a book can help market your consulting business. And
Right.
you know, when we were first setting up the topic, I think I heard you say one thing and we changed it to another. And people are like, I thought they were going to talk about Amazon. Well, all of that comes back to, going on Amazon. But today we're going to be talking about how publishing a book can help market your consulting business. So for those folks that are watching, whether you're watching live or in playback, if you are like Mary, an aspiring author, drop that in comments. Let us know. Announce it to the universe. I am going to publish my first book. Let people know that you are planning on publishing a book. That's a way of getting a goal done. Or if you know somebody in your network who is like Nicole, very interested in publishing a book, but doesn't know where to start. And maybe they're saying, I'm thinking about writing a book. Drop that into comments or maybe tag them in because they're going to learn some really great gems from Steve here today. So,
and
Steve,
I apologize if I'm doing this. It's because I'm reading the comments because I want to make sure that I'm up on up to speed on what you guys are saying or asking or something like that. So
absolutely. And I always tell my guests too, I say, if you know somebody who's coming in on the stream today, like Kenneth, and if you know them, it's fine to like stop and break script. It's like, I think in acting, they call it like breaking the fourth wall when you like talk to the audience as you're up on stage. And I'm a real person, Steve, you know that. And, feel free as you see people that that are coming into comments.
100%. That's exactly the way I am. I when I do live presentations, I've been known to just stop and, talk to somebody in the audience or something like that, and when we do this type of stuff, extremely casual. I don't like the idea of waiting till the end for a Q&A. If people have questions, let's answer them, so I would say that, like Mary here, she's saying, she's scared as a cat in water.
That's a good visual right there.
She has a co-author. And she says she has a co-author, so there's that too.
Yeah.
So where would you like to start, Brenda?
So let's start. I mean, there's people that are watching this, Steve, that are thinking about writing a book. So how do they even start? Like, it feels like that is like climbing Mount Everest, writing a book. So where do you start?
If I tell you the story of my first book?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so back in I think like in 1989 or something like that, I had been consulting for a few years, not a couple of years on my own. I found out that, like you, I am completely unemployable, and so I had to learn how to support myself and my new family, and I learned that the number one, one of the best ways to generate clients is through speaking. Now, of course, back then there was no internet, so it had to be live speaking. And so I was out talking at Rotary clubs and just, places like that for free, and I would get clients in the audiences and stuff from them. And it's still a fantastic tool, but now with the advent of the internet, it makes it so much easier to reach people. Like we are right now. Okay. So I was out doing that, and and for a couple of years, people would say, people who were authors, they would say to me, Steve, when are you going to write a book? And the answer is, as we always say, all of us, we say, oh yeah, I'm going to write a book. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do
someday.
And
right?
Someday, yeah, oh yeah, do this, right? Well, one night, one weekend night, we had a couple over for dinner, and her name is Henriette Klauser, and she is a best-selling author, and she had a couple of books out by that time, very successful. And we're having dinner, and she said, "So, Steve, when are you going to write your book?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, I'm going to write it." Yeah. And she says, "Take me into your office, show me your favorite books." Well, my office back then, Kay and I lived in a small apartment, and my office was basically in one of the closets. And so we go into my closet, and I do have like a row, stack of books over here. And she says, "All right, pick out 3." And I picked out 3, and then she said, "Okay, this one." And she grabbed one, and she said, "All right, you on Monday morning, you are going to call this publisher, and you're going to ask them who is the editor of this book." and you say, can I speak with him or her? And then you're going to, and when they get on the phone with you, you're going to suggest to them an idea for a book and ask them if they would like to see a proposal. And
Okay.
so I said, oh yeah, okay, yeah, sure, yeah, no
Yeah,
problem.
right. That's gonna happen,
Yeah,
right?
that's
Yeah.
gonna happen, sure, So Monday morning, of course, Kay says, "You're gonna do that," what Henriette said, right? And I said, "All right, all right." So I go get the book, and it turned out to be, it was McGraw-Hill, or it was a division of
Mhm.
McGraw-Hill. I call him up, and I said, "Is the editor, who's the editor of this book?" And they said, "Oh, it was Harry Briggs." And I said,
Okay.
"Okay, is Mr. Briggs available?" They go, "Well, I'll put you through." And I'm going,
Like
"Okay,
that. Like it just went
yeah,
happen right away.
yeah."
Yeah. Yeah.
And next thing I know, I hear this, Harry Briggs. Right? And I
Oh,
go, "Oh,
yeah.
hi, Mr. Briggs. My name is Steve Miller, and you did this book, and I have a book. I have an idea for a book on trade show marketing.
Okay. Mhm.
Would you be interested in a proposal for that?" And he said, uh, 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 and actually at first he said, "Steve, I'm in a meeting. Can I call you right back?" And so click, he's gone. And I'm thinking,
Okay.
I'm never going to hear from this guy
Yeah,
again,
'cause he
right?
did he ask you for your phone number, or was he
Yeah, I
just like
did. Yeah, he asked me for my phone number, but I thought he's not gonna call back. Well, 10
okay,
minutes later, he calls me back. And and so now I say, he says, "Okay, tell me what your book is about." And I said, "Well, trade show marketing, companies are all going to, they suck. And,
mhm.
and I wanna help them." Okay. I said, "Would you be interested in a proposal?" And he said, "Yes, I would."
Wow.
And he said, "When can you get it to me?" And I said,
Mhm.
30 days? And he goes, "Great. I look forward to reading your proposal." Click.
And that was it.
And that was
Wow.
it. And based on that first conversation, I sold my first book to this division of McGraw-Hill. And now up to that point, I had been doing pretty well.
Mhm.
And speaking wise, and I think my speaking fees at that time were now up to almost $2,500 a speech or something like that, right?
Mm, mhm.
After my
Can I
book
just
came
pause on
out,
that? Because there's some people watching this going, "Oh my gosh, I can get paid $2,500 to speak." Like, they're not even at that level yet. So, that may not sound like to you at this, but there's probably some people watching that aren't there yet, and hopefully this is inspiring them.
they're not at the $2,500. No,
Yeah. Mhm.
and it's just like in new speakers
Yeah.
are like new authors. Okay,
Mhm.
because it goes together just like this. It goes together
Yep.
just like that. And because I mean, in the beginning, I mean, my very first speech I ever gave, I got paid a table by an office supply company. So
Mhm.
and frankly, I was overpaid. I was terrible. But
Yeah.
and then I went on and gradually started building up to where I was up to a couple thousand and occasionally getting $2,500 a speech. Um,
Mhm.
but people kept telling me, "Hey, you write a book, it changes that. It
Mhm.
changes that." And when I finally got my book published by McGraw-Hill, within within a year, my fees were triple,
Wow.
and within a year or two after that, they were over 10,000 a speech.
So I got a couple questions coming off of that, and I know
Fire
there's other
away, fire
people
away.
thinking the same thing. Okay, first of all, this was like you called McGraw-Hill, and nowadays you can self-publish. Do you
Yeah,
think it's
yeah.
better to self-publish
Well,
or to
you
go
see,
with a
and see
publishing
the
house?
beauty, the cool thing about us having this conversation is that
Mhm.
of my 8 books, 5 of them were self-published.
Okay. Mhm.
Three of them published by regular publishers. So we have the experience of doing both, and I have very strong philosophies about this.
Okay.
And if you want to talk about that, but let me just finish my thought on my book, okay? Because I will tell you that book, which came out in 1990, is titled "How to Get the Most Out of Trade Shows," is still in print, and you can order it on Amazon. And I'm begging you, don't. All right. And,
You know I'm
and
gonna
the,
drop the link in comments here as we're
well, the
talking.
reason
Why?
why is
Yeah.
because this was written back in 1990 or published in 1990, and we've only updated it one time back in like 1993, 1994, and they've never asked for another update. It is so outdated.
Is it? Yeah.
It's just sad.
But it's
And in the
probably a
beginning,
good, like, retrospective. I mean, there's probably still some concepts of relationship building and networking that are relevant. I would imagine.
Well, oh,
Yeah.
for the most part, the information is evergreen.
Mhm.
But because of the references, now see, and now when people do buy it, and they're reading it, see, now the ratings are going down.
Right.
It was the number one selling book of all time in the trade show industry, and huge ratings. But now, people read it and they go, this is terrible. So I don't want people to buy the book. All right. But
Okay.
our books since that time, have changed. However, that first book, I
Yeah.
can tell you that the total amount of royalties that we've got, my joke is the total amount of royalties we've got since 1990 paid for a 3-day vacation.
Yeah.
You don't make much money on royalties, especially and royalties from a big publisher. Okay, you
Right,
just
because they
don't make
make
very much.
they're making the
But
money on you,
but it's
right?
it's what the book does for you. I can
Mhm.
tell you, I can safely say, and I mean, Kay would yell at me if I gave any accurate numbers, but I will tell you that it's 8 figures.
Mhm.
Is how much more money we made as a result of that first book.
That's
Okay,
amazing.
and since
Yeah.
1990, so we're
And
talking what 30 plus years. I mean,
and do you feel
or
like that's just the credibility that being an author it's great?
yeah.
I mean, it wasn't the book sales necessarily, but it
Oh
was
no,
like
no, no, no,
I've
no, no,
got a
no.
book, and I know you've got some techniques, and you talked about in one of our earlier conversations, the book is like a really expensive business card,
It's
right?
it's it's actually it's actually not an expensive business card.
Mhm.
Here's the question.
Mm.
Let me ask you this. Okay, so like back then when my book first came out, so if I was making
Yeah.
$2,500 a speech, all right.
Mhm.
Here's a question that very few people ever think about when they're in business, especially solopreneurs, and that is, how much are you willing to spend to get a new customer, to get a new
Sure.
client? How much are you
Mhm.
willing to spend? So
Mhm.
how much money am I willing to spend to get somebody who gives me $2,500?
Sure. Mhm.
And so when you think about it from a perspective of like, okay, would I spend $100 to get a $2,500 customer?
Mhm.
Uh, every day,
Right.
okay,
That's a pretty sweet
and
ROI right there, I would think, right?
twice on Sunday. Would I
Mhm.
spend $500 to get a $2,500 speaker?
Mhm.
Hell yes. See, this is the mistake that marketers make, and especially solopreneurs. They go, "Oh, it's so expensive." Giving away books. Remember, I was getting on you about that.
Yeah.
I said we have given away thousands of books
Mhm.
because our costs now, depending upon whether they were self-published or whether we were buying them from the publisher. So, like, I think when you're getting it from the publisher, it might
Mhm.
cost you $7.50 for a book or something like that. Uh,
Sure.
um, and
$7.50, by the way, and we're
yeah, I'm
talking
sorry.
about like a
Yes, thank
single
you.
book,
Seven
not
dollars
a
fifty
box.
cents.
Yeah.
So if I
Mhm.
give away, let's say 100 of those,
Mhm.
right? That's $750, right?
Yep.
Did I do that right? Okay. Now, if I give away 100 and I get and now see, and back then when my fees went up very quickly. So now
Mm.
think about a
Mhm.
$5,000 speaker. Okay,
Sure. Mhm.
and if I give away 100 books and I only get one new client, one new speech
Right.
at 5,000.
Mhm.
Is that worth it?
Still a pretty good ROI.
It's still, yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
absolutely. So you
Mhm.
see, that's the thing, and that's the mistake. People get small up here.
Yeah. Well, I
They
think a
get
lot of us
small.
think about, and I'm guilty as charged when I thought about publishing a book. Part of it was I wanted to have a book because I had so many people like you that would say, "Do you have a book?" And I'd be at events and they would say, "Can I buy your book? Where can I buy your book?" And I didn't have a book, so it was like more checking the box on having a book. And I did invest in working with a self publishing coach, and I did want to recoup some of my costs. So I wanted to at least like break even on it. And then it all in my mind, I was also thinking maybe this is an alternative revenue stream for me. Like I didn't envision to be like the Amazon bestseller, but I knew I could make money off of book sales. So in my mind, I think when we were first chatting about the books, I'm thinking, well, why would I give it away? Does that diminish the value of the book if I give it away?
Not
What do you
not at
think
all.
there?
Not at all, because when you give it to somebody, and especially when you have the opportunity where you can sign it for them.
Mm-hmm.
And in my standard line to people, when I tell people I'm going to send them a copy of my book or I'll give them a copy of my book, I always say, and I'm going to make sure I sign it for you because it makes it that much more valuable. Of course, that's a
Absolutely.
joke,
Yeah.
but because it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't. But they feel good about it. They feel, and it's
Mm-hmm.
I can personalize it, send it to you, and like that. And then what I will, and here's another great tip.
Mm-hmm.
What I would do, what Kay and I would do is if we were sending a book to somebody, and I'll give you a perfect example of how this works. Okay. When we read about people who are doing something really cool in business, especially small business people,
Mm-hmm.
we send a copy to them, or
Yeah.
I'll send a copy of my book and I'll say, hey, I read about you, in such and such an article and stuff like that. It sounds like you're doing some really cool things. And my smoking hot wife and I, we love to share with people who are doing other cool things. And
Mm-hmm.
so here's a copy of my book. It's autographed to you. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you very much. That's it. That's the whole
Right.
conversation. But then what I will also do, I'll say, P.S., by the way, I'm actually, I actually, put in another book
A
for
second
you,
copy of the same
a
book.
second
Yeah.
copy. Feel free
Mm-hmm.
to give that to a friend
Mm-hmm.
that you think might benefit from this. Now, we have done this for years, okay? And a perfect example of how this works was that one day, 2 years ago, we get a phone call. That's the big bestseller right there, Uncopyable. And
Yeah.
a couple of years ago, we get a phone call from a guy named Jim McInvale down in Houston. Now, some of you, if you are in Houston, you know exactly who I'm talking about. He's known as Mattress Mac. He owns 3 furniture stores in Houston. He was the guy who, when Houston got hit by a hurricane several years ago, he went on Facebook Live and he said, if you are displaced from your home and you need a place to sleep, come to my store. You can sleep on our beds. You can sleep on our
Wow.
couches. We'll pull out all the mattresses you can sleep at. We will feed you. If you need clothes, we will clothe you. All right. He is a legend in Houston. And he's the guy who also placed a $3 million bet on the Houston Astros last year to win the World Series. And he won $75 million on that bet. So a couple of years ago, opening day of the Houston Astros, they come running out onto the field in their bright orange jerseys. You see, and you saw the books that Brenda was holding up.
Yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And he sees the orange and he goes, Steve Miller, he sent me his
Right.
book.
Yeah.
I need to call him. And the next morning he hired me to consult for him.
Oh,
So
wow.
see,
So
that's
cool.
that type of, that's what I'm talking about. This is what books can do for you. This is what they
Mm-hmm.
can do for you. Now, when it comes to self-publishing, yeah, there's another way to do that, because especially today, back in the when we first self-published, they were kind of looked down upon,
Yeah.
but
Like you're
not
going an
anymore.
alternative route, the non-traditional route. It's not
Yeah, not
expected.
anymore. Self-published
Mm-hmm.
books, are high quality books today. They are treated. You can't tell on Amazon, that a book is published by a company or whether it's
Mm-hmm.
self-published. You can't tell.
Yeah.
They're the same. They're considered to be the same. So
I'm just going to keep jumping in and out of camera here because I want to show an example of what you're talking about. I mean, this is the copy of my book published and printed by a local printer. Now, when you publish on Amazon, you're probably aware you can get these non for resale version, then there's like a watermark printed on it, but
right,
you can also purchase them yourself to see. But the quality, if I look at these side by side, it's still glossy on both. It's still
yeah,
the paper. I mean, everything is identical. This one obviously has the watermark because I purchased
right,
the
right.
resale copies. But I would agree, and it's amazing when people think about if that's one of the hurdles, if you're thinking about the cost. I mean, really, Steve, you can write your own book and you can upload the working files to Amazon and not have to do any printing, right? On your own.
Now you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, now you can. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. But back when we did it, no,
Right.
Amazon didn't exist.
No, there was no
So
Amazon. There was no Amazon. There
no, there
wasn't
was no
that.
Amazon. In fact, but what we did, the thing that I learned was, number one, when if you're giving presentations. Now understand, I'm nonfiction. I'm like, Brenda and I are the same. We do
Mhm.
nonfiction business books.
Mhm.
Okay, they can be aimed at a small business, or they can be aimed at solopreneurs, things like that. But one of the things that I learned early in my speaking career was, instead of trying to speak for the Rotary clubs and people like that, I started looking for trade associations.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically in the beginning, I looked for state trade associations because
Okay.
they're small, they
Mm.
have no money,
Mm-hmm.
and so we would approach state associations, and we would say, and I would make sure my fee was much smaller, much
Sure.
smaller,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and and we would approach them, and then try to get onto one of their conferences, one of their state meetings, or something like that. Even if it was just a breakout session, you don't have to be a
Sure.
keynote speaker. I wasn't a keynote speaker for a long time. Yeah, it was 20
Mm-hmm.
years before I started keynote speaking. And but what we would do is we would say, instead of paying me to speak, just buy books.
Mm. Yeah.
All right, just
Mm-hmm.
buy some books. So they would buy some books, and we would give them a deal.
Yeah.
If the book sold for $19.95 or $14.95 or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
we would sell it to them for $8.95.
Sure.
Okay,
Half
and
off
they'd
or less.
buy
Yeah.
20, 30, 50 copies or something like that. So
Mm-hmm.
we would get a bunch of books out there.
Mm-hmm.
Then once we started, having this success with the small trade associations, we started thinking about self-publishing,
Mm-hmm.
because the idea that I came up with, which was probably the single smartest thing I've ever come up with in my entire life, and if you could pull this off, and if you and anybody can do this,
Yeah.
and that is that I would go, and because you connect with state associations, and if you do a good job for them, they will tell all the other state associations about you.
Good
All
point.
right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So now if you speak in Washington, up here where I am, now you get down, and now you're going to speak for California, and their
Mm-hmm.
audiences are bigger. Or then you're going to go to Texas, and then you're going to go to Utah and Indiana and stuff like that. I mean, like in the state restaurant associations across the U.S. I think I ended up speaking at like 30 of them.
Because you got
Around,
referred from one to the other and you were
yep.
speaking to different audiences and you could really the talk
And
was
then guess
essentially the same,
Yeah,
right?
and guess what the
Yeah.
next level was that
Mhm.
now they're talking to the national,
The national, yeah.
and they're and nationals noticing, you know, hey, all these state associations are bringing Steve in. Okay,
Mhm.
maybe we should bring him into the national convention.
Mm.
So now I'm speaking in front of a couple thousand people. All right. So
Yeah.
and if they and they've got money, so now they're paying me to speak and they're buying books. All right.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
here was the secret sauce of getting self-published. I would go to the trade associations. I came up with an idea for one book, and I
Mhm.
went to all of the trade associations, and I said, "Hey, I'm thinking about writing this book. It's not going to be long, 100 pages, something like that, but it's going to be a how to do this." All right.
Okay.
And everybody in your membership and your exhibitors at your trade shows, stuff like that, they all need this book. So um, uh, I will sell it to you for $5.
Mhm.
All right, in advance,
Okay.
if you order a minimum of like 200 books. Okay,
Sure.
if
Yeah.
they bought
Mhm.
1,000 books, I would give it to them for $4. All right,
Mhm.
I didn't care.
Mhm.
And then and then I said, and you have to pay 50% deposit in advance, in advance.
Sure.
Okay.
So you can just
All right.
get the order in and then you can cover your costs on that, right?
And I haven't even written the book yet.
Ah, there you go. Wow.
See, that's the secret. I
Mm.
pre-sell the books.
Mm.
Those five books that I said that we self-published, we pre-sold every single one of those. I think we sold 50,000 copies.
Wow,
And
that's brilliant.
so and when you self-publish, your cost is like $2.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
If you do it right, if you know what you're doing. Plus, if I pre-sell 5,000 copies,
Mm.
and we'll just say $5, all right? All right.
Yeah.
So the total sale is going to be 25 grand, but I'm going to get $12,500 in advance.
Right.
And now I go and have the book published for $2.
Mhm.
I've already made a profit.
Yeah, before
The
you
book
even
is paid
started
for.
it.
I've already made my profit before I
And
have
this
even written word one.
And this is
So
going the self-publishing route is what you're
yeah,
talking about. So when you talk about $2, what is the cost of that? Is that paying for a proofreader or an editor or a cover design? Like where are the hard costs coming in when you self-publish?
well, when we did it, we were everything.
Mhm.
We did it all. I mean, I had a designer design
Mhm.
the covers and stuff,
Yeah.
and then we hired somebody who set up the copy, I mean, the type and the
Yeah.
font and all that sort of stuff. But um, you don't have to spend a ton of money to have a book that has value. It's
Yeah.
it's the content that is really, really important. That's
Mhm.
really what's important
You
is the
you make it
content.
sound so easy, Steve, and I imagine like this comes with years of experience and practice doing books because your first book, were you this confident? I mean, you feel like I feel like you know it all right now, but did you feel that same way publishing your first book or was it a bit of like,
No, I because
yeah,
because I was because the traditional route, is
yeah,
to if is you go ahead and get it
yeah,
done and then you
yeah,
sell it,
yeah,
right? And quite frankly, I'm thinking, what if nobody buys,
yeah. Sure, you go
right?
through all this effort and then you got something on the shelf that's just sitting there collecting
Yeah.
dust and
And so, I'm literally I'm talking to people. I'm saying, "Hey, if I write this book, is this something you would be interested in?" And I would and so in the beginning it was more like I'm just asking people, do you think you would be interested in this, right? And people would
Mhm,
say,
mhm.
"Yeah, absolutely," right? So then I talked to people who had buying power at the trade associations and the meetings, and I would say, um, if I sold this book to you for $5, would you buy 100 copies? And they go, "Oh, heck yes. We
Yeah,
would do
because that's a
that,"
deal,
right?
a book for $5, yeah. And
"Oh,
was the
yeah,
book
yeah."
was the content of the book custom to the audience or to the topic or to the industry? Or tell me about, like, what was the
No, it was just
topic of
it
the
was
book?
well, my
Yeah.
first book was, How to Get the Most Out of Trade Shows, which,
Mhm.
don't buy
Yeah.
that, all right?
You know
And
there's
actually,
people clicking on
if you
Amazon
go
right now,
search my
like, looking it
if
up.
you go search my bio on Amazon, you'll see all the other books that are self-published.
Yeah.
And, and you'll see that they're small and they're just cheap little books. I mean, I can show you one, but um, in the very first time I did that, it was more like I was just kind of shooting in the dark with these guys, and I was saying, "Hey, are you interested?" And
Mhm.
the moment I got people to start saying, "Yeah," they would buy quantities of books in advance, and they would give me because then it was sort of like I would say, "Oh, would you buy this for $5?" They go, "Oh yeah, sure, sure, sure." I said, and then
Yeah.
then I'm just thinking, they keep saying yes. I say, "Well, would you be willing to write a deposit check for these?"
Mhm.
And they go, "Oh yeah, big deal, yeah, $250. I'll, or something, something like that." And I go, "Okay, thank you," right? And all of a sudden we realized we had this really cool formula
Yeah.
for making money off of our self-published books. All
Mhm.
right. Yeah. Now you can look at that. Let's
Where's
see
the
if
one you
you
don't want us to buy? Because everyone's gonna wanna buy
well
it.
if you scroll across the screen, and actually the one that's green, well, I guess that is mine.
Is that
Oh,
yours
that's one
right
of them
there?
right there. Oh yeah. Okay. Go down. All right. There's the
Yeah.
trade. There's the trade show. Yeah. Scroll down a little bit.
Oh, the grayish
Yeah. The
that one on
gray
the left?
one. The gray one.
Okay.
But then those
It's
other three right there.
95. You know I'm gonna buy it because you told me not to,
Yeah, yeah,
and now I'm
yeah,
curious.
yeah.
Five
Buy it, read it.
571, what a deal for a hardcover book even,
Yeah, it's hardcover, right?
$5.71 for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Mhm,
if you go
mhm.
back, those other three books that are next to it, those are three of our
Yeah.
self-published books.
Okay.
Uh, um, scroll down there to
Okay.
where the trade show book is. So
Oh,
there's
yeah.
those are
Mhm,
three of the self-published books
mhm,
right there,
mm.
and they're not, they're short books. They're
Yeah,
not long,
yeah.
but boy, have those paid for a lot of nice stuff for us.
That's great.
And
So if you're just joining, for those that are watching, we're talking about how publishing a book can help market your consulting business. And we're going to change gears here, Steve. And I want to see if the audience
yeah,
has any questions or
let's
comments.
answer questions, okay?
Yeah. And I know there's a couple people that are interested in self-publishing. So it sounds like you're of the mindset that self-publishing is a good route to go. Is that fair to
It
say?
it is okay. I have my philosophy now about self-publishing
Mhm.
is pretty simple. Um, if if I have access to a large enough market base
Yeah.
who knows me, okay, that I can take advantage of that, then I self-publish.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Okay.
then I think I can make a profit off book sales.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
In addition to, see, and now I don't do live speaking anymore. Okay. I have 6 million miles. I don't want to travel anymore.
Yeah.
Right. But I do them online, right? Like this. Okay.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
and I do a lot of these every week. And, and so if I can get, and then I also want to get paid to be able to present.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So,
Yeah.
if I have access to a marketplace, I will self-publish. If I
Okay.
don't, if I think there's a bigger audience out there that doesn't know who I am, then I look for a publisher. And
Okay.
that's my personal criteria for it.
Okay. Fair
So.
enough. That's good. And I see a couple other folks commenting too. Like here's one from Mindy. Hey, Mindy, nice to see you today. Mindy's agreeing with your philosophy. She says she's given away lots of copies of her book. Very gratifying when someone says they've read it after receiving it from someone else and the pass along value. And if you're joining a little late, Steve, you talked about your technique earlier of when you give a copy of your book away, you give two. And I have not done what you asked me to do yet with that book, which is give it to someone else. So I am going to be giving that away. I'll do that this week. But I think it's a really brilliant technique of the
but I
pass along.
talked you into
Yeah.
sending me a case of books.
Yes, you did. Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
In our initial conversation, you were talking about what a great, you were going to give me a really, really great discount. And I said, yeah,
Right.
0.
Right.
Because you see, I also have contacts.
Well,
right?
and you're in the marketing industry, and I think there's something that's really strong about that too. I have a local photographer, same thing. He does headshot photography, and when people get a headshot photo, often he's having conversations like, "What are you gonna do with the photo?" Well, I'm gonna put it on my LinkedIn. My LinkedIn's really outdated though, and then he's like, "Oh, you should talk to Brenda." And what does he pull out is a copy of a book. I've given him a box too, and he gives them away to his clients. And I've had people reach out to me saying, I met with Scott out to shout Lawrence, by the way. And he says, you're the person for LinkedIn. Let's work together. So, to your point, there is a hard cost that I have to pay to get those books, but it is a fraction of the amount of revenue I gain from working with a new client.
But here's
Yeah.
something I need to remind everybody of.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to understand this. Okay. So and I'll use a couple of examples, to show what I mean. People who Christian bookstore owners.
Yeah.
Okay. If you ask them what business they're in, they will say, I'm in, I'm here to spread the word of God.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I say, how you do that? And they say, well, through the books and stuff like that. Okay. I say, well, if somebody doesn't buy a book, are you spreading the word? And they go, well, no. And I say, so you're not in the business of books. You're in the business of selling and marketing books. Okay. No matter what you think you do for a living, I teach people. You say I teach people how to be professionally etiquette. Professional etiquette.
Sure.
For in their business lives. No, you don't. You market information about professional etiquette in business. Every single person and everybody who's on this call right now, you are marketers first.
Right.
Without marketing and sales, you are dead in the water. If you don't learn how to be a marketer, you are dead in the water.
Yeah. Knowing that is really important. I see we have another question coming in. This is from Sue. And thank you for watching, Sue. And Sue says, she's probably one of the many people who has a lot of ideas about a book and she's trying to figure out what to write about. And she doesn't know which one is going to be an actual book. So how do you figure out if the topic is worthy of a full book?
That's an easy answer. That's an easy answer. Is there somebody out there that will buy that book? Now, number one, the first thing I need you to understand, all right, there's an old saying, find a need and fill it.
Yep.
And a lot of people will say, oh yeah, I'm writing this book on, physical fitness because people need this book. Nobody needs your book. And if you think people need your book, that's not the answer. You need people who also
Right.
think they need your book.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have an agreed to need.
There has to be a market out there for a demand for that out
Who
there,
a
a
demand.
desire.
They
Right.
they have
Mhm.
to acknowledge they need what you've got. Right. So
Yeah.
that's what you do is you first go find the market.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And you say, does my information, does my knowledge, does my expertise, and we've all got expertise
Right.
at something. And you say, okay, who's the market for this?
Yeah.
First, and what do I know about that market?
Yeah. I like that.
Okay. And what's the pain of that market?
Yeah.
What are the problems, challenges, aspirations of that market? And
And that back.
will they agree that they have a need for this? Because
Yeah.
if they do agree with it, you've got it. You've got a market.
There you go.
You
And I
can
think
sell
you
those
could
things.
even do that even within your own email list. You could say, I'm thinking of writing a book about this. Is this is a topic you're interested in? Or on LinkedIn. And I've even done this when I went through the self-publishing route. I mean, I documented every step of my way when I was talking about my book, the title of the book, the covers. I asked people opinions on things along the way. Speaking of the journey of writing a book, we have our next question from Joey. Hey Joey, nice to see you.
Great question,
Joey's
Joey.
asking, how do you make the time to write your books? What do you think,
Now,
Steve?
I'll tell you that there's a couple of schools of thought of this.
Mhm.
There's a woman named Diana Boer,
Mhm.
Booher, and if you go check her on Amazon, I think right now she's up to about 7,122 books that she's written.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, it's a lot.
A lot, yeah.
And I mean, she and I think she I think she does have some books about how to write a book, and if she does, go get them. All right.
Okay.
Diana is the queen bee of writers, um and Diana will tell you that you look for those blank spaces in your schedule.
Mhm.
Even if you're sitting at the airport waiting for a flight, you are
Mhm.
working on your book.
Right.
Okay.
Mhm.
My first editor, Harry Briggs, who I mentioned, it was pretty funny because a few years later, he said, Steve, I got to tell you a story. I said, what's that? And he said, I ride the train every day into work. Okay. I
Yeah.
said, yeah. And he said, and every day for the last 3 years, there's been a guy who sits across the aisle. We both sit on the same seats all the time. And every week, I mean, every day he is sitting there working on a notepad.
Oh, really?
Right.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. And he said, we've barely talked. But we know, we've introduced ourselves. We know each other, stuff like that. He said, guess what? His name is John Grisham, and he just
Oh.
published a book called The Firm. And he
Oh
wrote
my
that
gosh.
book on the
Wow.
train while he was sitting across from Harry Briggs. And Harry said to me, he said, what was I doing? That whole time he was writing a
That's amazing.
multi-million best-selling book. He said, I was doing crossword puzzles.
I mean, we all have the same 24 hours in a day,
Yeah.
right? And it's what do we do? Because when Joey asked the question, how do you make the time? I was thinking, you don't make time. I mean, there's a finite amount of time
Well,
we have
I
in
did,
every day.
right? I did, and I do. What I
Yeah.
did with my original book, which was pretty funny because I was not a writer at that time.
Yeah.
This was completely foreign to me.
Yeah.
And so, but I was on a deadline to get this proposal to Harry and then ultimately, the deadline for the book. And
Mhm.
and I learned two tricks that helped me. One was, and this sounds stupid, is I had a chart on my wall that was like number of words per day.
Okay. Mhm.
Okay. And I would say to myself, I'm going to write a minimum of 100 words per day.
Mhm.
And no matter what. Right.
Yeah.
And so every day I would plot, how I was doing. And so,
Like a
and then for next,
temperature graph that sometimes you see with like the fundraisers, like how close are we to
yeah,
goal kind of
yeah,
thing. Yeah.
exactly.
Mhm.
And then if I had a day where I did 1,000 words, I would go, oh God, I wonder if I can beat that day, right? But the way I also did it was I sat down in my chair in front of my uh, you know,
Mhm.
very, very basic computer back then. Um, and I set the timer for 2 hours.
Yep. Mhm.
And I told myself, I'm not gonna allow myself to get up out of this chair until that alarm goes off.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
No matter what. And if it means I just sit here and stare at the blank screen for 2 hours, that's what I do. You know,
Right.
and
Yep.
if I only write 100 words, that's all I do. But you know what? After a few days, I found myself getting up.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and got a belt out of my closet and I belted myself to the chair.
There you go. Now you can't get up anymore.
And it gave me,
Yeah.
because I had to physically unbuckle the belt to get up. And the moment I would start to do that, I would say, nope, can't do that.
Too much
So
effort. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
make, the idea is you block
Mm-hmm.
time out of your
Yeah.
calendar ahead of
Mm-hmm.
time. You do it. You block out, your next week, and you block out 2 hours a day, or an hour a day, or 4 hours a day, or whatever it is that
Mm-hmm.
you have to make yourself do that
Yeah.
to do it. I mean, it's a great question, and it,
Mm-hmm.
there's a discipline to
Yeah.
this, to just sitting down and putting words on paper.
Yeah. That's very true. And I think, we all get there. And it reminds me a little bit of that movie, The Shawshank Redemption, where the guy created a hole in the wall and he burrowed all the way out of the prison. I mean, what did he say? All it takes is pressure and time.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's the same concept with a book, right, Steve? I mean, it takes you have to have discipline and time, but you can get there. It's not impossible to write a book, but you have to believe it and you have to commit to the time. So I
Well,
want to start wrapping up our conversation here, Steve. And I know there's so many gems in here. I'm hoping folks watch and they'll watch the playback if they joined us a little bit late here. We're talking today about how publishing a book can help you market your consulting business. Any final comments for those folks that are watching?
yeah, I'll leave one really quick comment here regarding generative AI.
Yeah.
In particular, like ChatGPT
Chat
or
GPT, that's coming up everywhere right now. Yeah.
Jasper or something like that.
Yeah.
I just got, ChatGPT has, if you're on the free version, you're making a huge mistake because it crashes every day. And they've released a paid version. I've been on the paid version now for a little over a week because it's brand new. It's only $20 a month. But what you can do with ChatGPT is you can use it as an idea starter, or
Yeah.
as a phrase starter.
Mhm.
So like what I'll do with what I've been doing with ChatGPT is I take, I might be writing and I'll take
Mhm.
part of I'll finish from doing something yesterday. I take the last paragraph from yesterday and then I go in today and I put it into ChatGPT and I say rewrite this.
Yeah.
Okay, so it rewrites my paragraph in a different way, and that stimulates me to think, oh, here's what I can do, right?
Sure. It
And,
helps,
and,
I think, with that brainstorming part of is what I'm hearing you saying.
and that's all you
Right.
should be using it for.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Do not use verbatim whatever comes out of there. You
Not a
have to,
replacement. I agree with that philosophy
yeah, because
100%.
one of the things that when people have seen me like here, okay, you've seen me here. If you read my books, you will go, I can hear Steve.
I do. I hear your voice when I'm
Yeah.
reading it. I hear
Yeah.
what you're saying. It's
But
got
if
that personality.
if I just let ChatGPT
Yeah.
write it, it's not my voice.
Yeah. I hear you.
Not
Yeah.
yet. So that's my last thing. But reach out,
All right.
questions. You want a copy of my book? Let me know. I'll send it to you.
There you go. So mention Steve. And by the way, Steve, are you open to connecting to people on LinkedIn
Oh
if they
yeah,
connect with you?
100%. Yeah, if you say that if you say that you are in love with Brenda Meller.
Only because it's Valentine's Day, not because it's inappropriate, right?
I'm not a PC kind of guy. So if you just say, hey, I saw or heard you on,
Yeah, I love
with
the
Brenda.
interview. Like, I
Yeah.
love the interview would probably be a more appropriate way of describing the love and affection that you have for me.
Oh,
There
I
is
love it. I love it. Joey says I have the same chart from when I wrote my first book. That's cool.
Yeah, see? That's
Good
good.
for you, man.
So there is Steve's profile. I want to remind everyone who's
Very good.
watching this that Steve is set up in creator mode on LinkedIn. If you're not familiar with what that means, you know what happens when you land on someone's profile, you're going to see a follow button instead of connect. Now I'm already connected, so you're not seeing it on my view. But if you want to connect with Steve and you don't want to just follow him, you have to go to the more button, click on that, and underneath you'll see an option, one of which will say personalized invite or connect. And that's where you want to say, hey, I saw your interview today with Brenda. Loves the conversation. Let's connect on LinkedIn, and Steve will be happy to accept you. And then for those folks that are interested in working with you, Steve, I know you said you're not doing the speaking circuit anymore, or at least the in-person speaking anymore. Tell us, like, what are the services and things that you do for organizations? Because there might be somebody watching that you can help with.
Well, I sort of still do some consulting.
Okay. Yeah.
Sort of.
Okay.
I'm very careful about who I work with.
Yeah.
I'll tell you right up front, I am not cheap.
Yeah.
But what I would suggest in the beginning is get on my list. Uh, and become one of my BFFs, my best friends forever. That's what
And
go
we
to
can go to your
theadventure.com.
website, right? Theadventure.com to get
Yeah,
on your list.
and
Is that
sign
the
up,
best way to do that?
if
Yeah.
and if you can't find a place to sign up, I really stopped marketing myself a long time ago.
Yeah. You're doing pretty good. I mean, you're at that point now where it's like, you've done a lot throughout your career, and you can be selective on the clients you
I'm
work
backing
with.
off.
You can be selective on-
COVID gave me the greatest.
Yeah.
It gave me permission to slow down.
Yeah.
COVID did, and because my wife, my smoking hot wife, she said, you don't have to work this hard anymore. I mean, I
Yeah.
was in the office at 6:00 in the morning for 25 years,
Oh, easy.
and
Yeah.
but now I'm not. Now
Yeah.
I'm drinking coffee,
There you
and
go.
but reach out to me, get on my list, because there will be there'll be opportunities to connect, get involved, and But if you have a question, just fire a question to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And you
Uh,
can still drop the question in comments wherever you're watching this video, whether it's on LinkedIn, on YouTube. Eventually, Steve, this will be in a podcast, and I'll have your contact information included in on the show notes. And as we start to wrap up here today, we're getting close to the end of the hour. I want to remind people, if you did enjoy the video, I want to give you something that you can do. And that is, as soon as the video stops playing, you're going to see a share button at the bottom of it here on LinkedIn. Click on share. You can share that out. That can be your LinkedIn post. If you've not yet posted this week, this month, this year, this can be the first one that you push out there, and tell people something that you learned from watching this video or why they should watch it. Maybe you know somebody who's an author in your network, and you can tell them. I love it. I love the shout outs here.
if you don't have this book, you're making a mistake.
Thank you, Steve. Well, it has been such a pleasure chatting with you today, Steve. Thank you so much. And any final comments before we wrap up here?
No.
All right, there we go. No. I love it. Well, thank you, Steve, for your time today.
Thank you, everybody. Really
Valentine's
appreciate
Day.
you taking the time to be with us today. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. It was a lot of fun. All right, everyone, stay safe and stay healthy. And I will see you on LinkedIn again. Remember, I'm usually every Tuesday at 9:05 a.m. Eastern. Sometimes I have guests on the Pacific coast, like Steve, that I move my time, but we will see you again next Tuesday. With that said, have a wonderful day, and we will see you all soon. Take care.